Welcome to That Girl Club. We're your hosts, Christina and Katarina, and we're here to empower you on your journey to becoming that girl in every aspect of your life. Join us as we dive deep into inspiring conversations with influential entrepreneurs and experts, sharing their insights and strategies to help you thrive. From navigating the struggles of womanhood to launching your dream business and everything in between, we've got you. So buckle up. You are about to discover what it really means to be that girl. Welcome to the club. Welcome back, That Girl Club. Today we have a truly special guest, Cata Fernandez. Cata is a medical student, a fitness and wellness influencer, and the founder of Rise and Run Running Club. As an online fitness coach, Cata combines her knowledge of medicine with a passion for wellness to guide people toward healthier, more balanced lives, both physically and mentally.
Whether she's sharing fitness tips on social media, leading her running club, or balancing her med school studies with a thriving wellness career, Cata is all about being unapologetically herself. In today's episode, we'll dive into Cata's journey to finding her passions, how she stays motivated, her current fitness routine, and how she embodies that girl lifestyle, someone who actively strives for self-improvement while maintaining balance.
Cata truly blew us away with her story and life experience thus far. We learned so much from her, and we can't wait to share this episode with you. Get ready to be inspired. Hi, Cata. Hi. Welcome to That Girl Club. Thank you so much for being here with us. We're so excited to have you.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, girls. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, thanks for making time because you are one busy girl. Yeah, seriously, I feel like you have so much going on. Like sometimes when I look at your social media, I'm like stressed. I'm like, wait, doing all of this. Like even today before you got here, you did a workout, did you not?
I did. I know.
Yeah, like how do you do it all, girl? How do you manage
Honestly,
everything?
I don't know. I feel like I get that question all the time. And like my number one answer, I'm always like, first of all, I like don't think about it. Like I do, but I don't. Like I feel like when I overthink it too much, I'm like, oh my God, I'm doing so many things. Like I need to like chill out. So I just kind of like do it. But like I think it's like I'm very organized. We'll say that. Like I think it's like organization, but I also like I love everything I do. So I think that makes it a little easier. Like
Not like such a chore.
exactly. Like I
Yeah.
kind of like I get bored easily, so I'll go from like one thing, and when I'm like bored with that, I'll be like, oh, like it feels like I kind of just shift between a billion things, but they're all fun in different
Yeah.
ways, you know?
What's your zodiac sign?
I guess.
I'm kind of feeling Gemini for you.
No.
No?
No.
Libra.
No. No.
Okay, wait, let me try.
Yeah, I
Okay,
guess.
You have two guesses now. Aries.
No, that's my best friend's an Aries though. We're very similar.
Okay, one more. One more for you. Leo?
No. I'm a Scorpio. What that was? I'm a Scorpio. I know. Oh my God. No, I'm like such a
Jealous of
zodiac
me.
girl, which people are like, oh my God, like, you know, there's like no basis to it. Like you're in med school, you should know. I'm like, I know, I don't care.
I'm like, no,
I don't care.
Don't be haters.
I
We like to
know.
read that and like see ourselves in it.
Exactly.
Okay, well, yeah, you've built like just such a unique brand. Like you've combined like medicine, fitness, wellness, like everything all into one. Can you kind of just share with us like a little bit more about your journey and like how it all started and how it all began essentially?
Yeah, totally. I feel like it's a very like organic type of process. It was never like if I told my like 16-year-old self that like I'd be where I am today, she'd be like, what the fuck? Like, it's never like it was never like, oh, I want to be doing like exactly this like at this point in my life. I think like back in high school, like I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I just kind of like school. I played a lot of sports. And it was just again like what I enjoyed.
Were you very academic in school?
Like for a little bit, like it's more towards the end. It's actually like it's really funny. It's like a random story, but like I was in I think like grade 8, 9 when like Instagram and stuff was coming out, and then I remember I was like posting a lot on Instagram. My Instagram was like growing, and I was like, oh my God, like influencers didn't exist back in the day, but I was like, this is really fun. Like it's very creative, and like I was just kind of like partying all the time, and like I had this thing in my head. I was like, I want to do like Instagram and fun things and have fun and play sports and hang out with my friends. So I was never like I did well in school, but I was never like super focused. And then in grade 10, I got locked out of my Instagram account. And that like I was like, okay, well, I guess I can't really do anything with Instagram because I had to restart it and I was just pissed. And then like I kind of was just like, I guess we'll just like try really hard in school. And that's like what made me kind of like, yeah, I'm grade 10. I started just like working really hard in school, and then I was like enjoying it. And then I still didn't really know what I wanted to do. And it was like a grade 12 teacher who was like, oh, like you're doing like really, really well in my bio class. Like, have you ever thought about like going to med school? And I was like, no, like I don't have anyone in my family that's in medicine or anything like that.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, I started doing like volunteering and stuff like that. And then,
Like at the hospital?
yeah, like when I was like 17, like that's like when I first started like volunteering and just like
Okay.
when I like do things, I find I'm either like 0% or like 250%.
Yeah,
So
there's no, like in between.
exactly. I'm like very like extreme. So when she like put that idea into my head, I was like, okay, I'm going to try everything under the sun to see like if medicine is for me. So I was like, okay, I'm going to start volunteering. I like never did any like, what's it called? Like school president stuff, like those things. I never did that in high school. I just did like sports.
Yeah.
So I like got involved in that in undergrad and stuff. And like everything I did, I was like, okay, I could really see myself in medicine. So that was kind of like that part of it.
That's a good way to test it out, though, I feel like, to actually start like getting involved and kind of like immersing yourself in it more or less to be like, is this for me? Is this not for me? You know what I mean? I feel like even when I've listened to like Jay Shetty's podcast, he always says he's like, if you think you want to do something, but you're not sure you want to do it, go to work with that person for the day. Like volunteer, like you just said, right? I think that's a good way to kind of like trial and error.
Exactly.
But there must have been some sort of interest, like in school with the sciences.
Yeah. I mean, I think there definitely was. Like, I think it was like, I definitely worked really hard, but it was again, like it all stems, I think everything I do, like I'm very busy, but it all stems from like just genuine enjoyment of the things I do. So I was always like genuinely interested. I was like, whoa, like science is really cool. I'm very like analytical. So for me, like English, I was like, no, I can't. I literally like writing a paper. That is my worst nightmare.
So funny. I feel like we're opposite.
You're opposite. That's really
Yeah,
funny.
So
And
like creative and like wordy.
that's the thing. And I feel like it's like different because it's like I consider myself a very like creative person. Like I feel very fulfilled when I do creative kind of endeavors.
And you are. I was just gonna say you are really creative. Social media and everything.
Yeah, and it's so
Yeah.
fun. But it's like I
Yeah.
feel like people that I meet are creative are like you girls like you love like English and you have like you're like so good at that. So it's like kind of weird. Like it took a while for me to like be like I guess accepting of myself because especially in like medicine and science, it's a lot of like type A analytical, like the creativity part isn't as like accepted in a sense.
For sure. It's more like head in the books. Like, yeah.
But I think more and more, and social media has helped with this a lot, is like people are multifaceted, right? Like you can love many different things and be good at different things. So it's like, but I understand what you mean. It took you a while to kind of marry those two like identities together and realize like, hey, that's just me.
Yeah. And I feel like, I don't know, it's like, I'm sure you girls agree. It's like being in high school and going to like whatever, if it's undergrad or whatever, like being in your early 20s and stuff, it's like, it's just like a headache. Like you don't know who you are. And you're like, I want to maybe be like this. But like, if you don't really have like a mentor in that sense, then it's hard to just be like, okay, like I can create my own identity.
Yeah.
Like you kind of try to fit like different molds and different personalities. So it was kind of like, not a struggle, but like it took a while to just accept like, okay, like I can do like the creative part. And then like kind of the medicine part. And then I think like the fitness part was like, it was kind of like my saving grace in undergrad because like I played tons of sports. And then when I started first year, like science, I remember I was just like, I didn't have sports in my life anymore. So it's very much like, hey, I need to like, I still need to like, I want to keep working out, but I didn't have like my teammates there. And it was just like a weird kind of transition. And I was like just studying 24/7, so burnt out. I was like hating school, which I had never happened for me. So that's how I kind of got into like the fitness side of it. And then I was like, oh my God, like I said, it's either like 0% or like 250%. So I was like, I'm obsessed with this. Like everyone needs to like know about like working out and like weightlifting and like this is so fun. And I'd follow like all those fitness influencers like Chrissy Chella, like Whitney Simmons and all them. And I was like, oh my God, these girls, like they're like baddies. Like I love them. I want to be them. And then that's kind of how I started like my Instagram account. And I just like, I didn't really have a goal for it. Like I wasn't like, oh my God, for the clout or for like, I didn't really imagine like any growth in that sense. But I was just like
you weren't doing it to be an influencer.
Yeah.
You were just like organically like posting it. 'Cause you're like, I genuinely like love what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I want more people to know about this. Is that
Exactly.
kind of the vibe?
Yeah, that's exactly it. And I think
Yeah.
like anything like that, like if you're doing it from a place of like just enjoyment for yourself first, because like it's shitty when you start out. Like nobody starts with like thousands and thousands of followers. Nobody starts being like kind of like known or anything. So if you're starting for, I think, the clout and the wrong reasons, like you're not gonna progress because like it takes a long time. Like I started my account when I was like 17 and I'm 25 now. And for like the first like 4 or 5 years, I had like less than 3,000 followers. Like it just kind of like took off afterwards. But like if I didn't like what I was doing and I wasn't doing it like for myself and I didn't feel like creatively fulfilled, I think like I wouldn't have been able to keep it up because it's like I had like 2 likes per post, like, it was it's hard.
It would have been more discouraging if you were doing it for, like you said, the clout versus just for yourself. But when you initially started it, was this because you went through a fitness transformation yourself as well, right? So was this right around the time you like started that page? You were going to med school. Like when did that transformation take place?
I feel like it's kind of like I've actually never really like spoken about this and broken it down, but like so after I finished high school, I was 17 and then I started my undergrad in biomedical sciences. And how medical school works in Canada, at least, like you have to do an undergrad at university, and then you can apply to medical school, which is another 4 years. So my first year of undergrad, I was like super like into fitness, and that's when I like started like just getting like a lot more fit, and I started my page and everything. And that's when I was like, I'd say, I guess like peak fitness. I was like kind of finding like resistance training and all these things.
Right.
And that just kept me like going during my 4 years of undergrad. And I also had like, I was in a long-term relationship at the time. So it was very much like school, working out, and on the weekends, like on a Friday, Saturday night, I could hang out with my boyfriend type of thing, right?
That was kind of like your regimen.
And it was very like, I was very like routine structured. Like I was happy with my life. Everything was like very chill. And then, I, after my 4 years of undergrad, like I applied to med school my first time, only to one school. And like, I didn't get an interview. And the process is like crazy. Like you apply in October, you hear back about interviews in January, you interview from like, I don't know, I think like February all the way to March, you're here back in May.
Wow.
So it's almost like a full year process.
That's a long process.
Yeah. So like if you like apply and then you don't get an interview, or like let's say you apply and you interview and you don't get in, it's kind of like in people's heads like, oh fuck, like that's a year wasted type of thing.
Right.
So I applied my first time and then I didn't get an interview, and then I was like, what am I gonna do with my life? And then I didn't know if I wanted to like I knew I wanted to go to med school, but like it's very, very like challenging to get into.
For sure. So you were like, hey, if that doesn't work out, what's plan B?
Exactly. Yeah. And then I think I had like applied again. I'm kind of getting like the timelines mixed up. But basically, like at the end of like my 4th year, I was like at a crossroads. I was like, I know I want med school, but like how do I get there in the best way? A lot of people either like add on a 5th year to their undergrad to like just increase their grades.
Right.
Or they do a master's. And I was like, I don't really want to do a master's. I guess let me do a 5th year. Like, I guess that could help. But then that year was like crazy for me because I just like, I was doing my 5th year and I was just really bored. Like all my friends had graduated. I wasn't feeling like happy and fulfilled. And like around that time as well, I had just gotten out of a long-term relationship. So I'd been like dating someone for 4 years. And then I like started this 5th year. I was feeling kind of lost, almost like I'd regressed in a sense because I was like, I'm supposed to be graduated right now. I'm like in a 5th year. I want to be in med school. I'm not. I just broke up with my boyfriend and I was like leaning a lot on my friends. And then, but I just like, I didn't feel like myself. Like I wasn't like happy and I was hungover all the time. I like felt like shit. I didn't like school. And then I was like, hey, I need to do something and like drastically, like I need to just like get out of like my environment. Like I'm not growing here. And like I love my friends to death. Like I'm still friends with them, but I was just like, I need to like get into a new environment, push myself out of my comfort zone in a way that like is even terrifying like to me. So I like dropped out of my 5th year like halfway through and I booked a one-way trip to Italy. Like travel, like you learn so much about yourself and you grow in ways that like you can't learn what you learn in like solo travel from a textbook.
Yeah.
And then I was just kind of like, okay, like I don't know, like I had applied to med school again and I was like, I don't know if we'll get in. Like the acceptance rate is like 2 point something% at this school. I only applied to one school. Like in my head, I was like, I probably won't get in, but like I was just like sick of like A, the way I was feeling, and B, I was like, I can't keep like waiting around for like the perfect time to like do all these things. Like I'd always wanted to live in Europe for a while and I was like, the perfect time will never come. So like, fuck it. We'll just like,
Let's do it now.
Yeah.
Exactly.
In the meantime, before med school, what else were you going to do? Right.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's the thing. And I was like, may as well just like buy like how I'd go to
That's
Italy.
amazing.
So yeah, that was like it was really crazy. I like booked the one way I think like in November on like a random Tuesday night, and I had
Love
no
that.
plans. Like I didn't know anybody there. I didn't know the language. Like I just was like I need to go somewhere and like be like culture shocked, like shocked in every sense so I can grow.
Good for
Um
you though for recognizing that. Like, and that's and you're so young too. So I feel like that you were
yeah,
probably how old were you at that point?
21.
Wow, like that's
Mhm.
young to be like, I
Get
need
it
to
together.
heal and grow and like
Yeah.
evolve. I think that's really cool. To
How
be
did
big of
your
you.
family take it? Like, were they
They so, like, I've always been kinda, like I say crazy, but, like, I don't think it's crazy, but, like, my parents have always, so I actually, like I don't think a lot of people know this about me, but I immigrated here when I was 5
Oh wow.
from Chile, like, in South America.
Wow.
Yeah, so, like, my family is just, like I love them to death. We're so close, like, they are, like, my rocks and my people, and, like, we like, now it's weird as an adult looking at, like, my parents because like, they moved here with, like, 3 young children when they were I think my mom was, like, 27, my dad was, like, or that's a lie. Anyways, in their 30s, and
Yeah.
then, like, being an adult now, you're like, "Whoa," like, that's crazy because 'cause I'm, like, they're kind of, like I'm not their age, but, you know?
You're almost there kind of thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but, they've always really emphasized, like, travel and, they've known like, I booked a solo trip to, like, Costa Rica when I was, like, 18, and, like, I've always, like, loved travel. My dad's kinda, like he did a ton of traveling in his 20s and just, like, solo, like, things like that. So,
Yeah.
like, I remember it was so funny. It was, like, 11 p.m. on a Tuesday, and then I was just like, "You know what? If I don't do this now, I will never do it. Like, I know I don't have a plan, but I need to just book the flight and then figure out the plan. Like, I just need to do it." So I just, like, put in my credit card number and, like, pressed it, and then I went to, like, knock on my parents', like, door, and I was like, "Guys." They're like, "Yeah?" Like, I was like, "I just booked a one-way flight to Italy."
So how long were you in Italy for?
So I booked the trip like like end of November, and then I booked a one way because like in my head I was like, hey, first of all, like I have no clue what I'm doing. Like I didn't know anybody there. Like I said, like I didn't have a plan.
Right.
And then I was like, if shit really hits the fan and like I hate this, like I want to be able to come home. But like let's say I love it, I want to be able to stay for as long as
Yeah, you
possible.
want to be options.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So I ended up staying for 6 months actually. Like I left beginning of January 2022. And I ended up like the plan that I ended up kind of having is I was like a nanny basically,
Oh
or
wow.
an au pair. It's like kind of the same
Yeah,
thing.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So I was like living with an Italian family. And yeah, it was like super fun. It was kind of a little bit during COVID. And I like I'm super grateful for social media because like I said, like I didn't know anybody there. I didn't know the language. So I'm very extroverted and, like, I feel like it's easy for me to make friends, but I was like, "Okay, this is, like, a whole other challenge, like, a new country, I don't know, like, the culture or anything." And I remember I posted, like, a TikTok video, like, the first week I was there being, like, basically that, like, "I just moved here, this is so crazy, whatever."
Was this when you had your social media accounts like already kind of big and going, or no, not at that point?
Like, not as much. Like,
Okay.
I think that my social media really grew when I was in Italy. I
Okay.
think I had, like at the time that I was leaving, I think on TikTok, I'd, like, just hit, like, 10K or something, and I think on Instagram, I had, like, 2,000 followers. Like, I wasn't, like I was still very much, like, just posting and being annoying and, like, posting, like, a ton, but just, like, for
Yeah.
myself. But I posted, like, a ton in Italy because I didn't really have much else to do, I guess. And I remember like the first week I was there, I like posted a video and then this girl saw it and she's from the UK. She was like studying in Milan as well. Like that's where I was living.
Okay.
And then she messaged me. She's like, "Oh my God, like I just moved here too. Like I'm here studying." And I was like, "Oh my God, she speaks English and she looks so fun."
Like perfect.
I
You
know.
just
I'm
met
like,
her.
let's be besties, literally. And then I went out with her like the second week I was there and we just like clicked like right away. She's like still one of my best friends. It was like
I love that.
yeah,
That's
and
really
it was like
sweet.
a really like special like relationship. Like we hung out all the time, got to know each other like super well. And she was
Yeah.
like basically like my sidekick the whole time I was there. Like I think that if I hadn't met her, I would have gone home within like a month or two.
Wow.
So yeah, it's like I don't know, I learned like so many things like abroad, but it's a lot of just like those little reflections where I was like, wow, like the place was beautiful. Like Milan and Italy, it's like gorgeous and stunning and I love it, but like I always say that I'm like, whoa, like if I hadn't met my friend Laura, like I would have gone home so much earlier. And it just kind of showed me like it doesn't really matter like where you are, but like the people in your life,
Who
like
you're
those
with.
hardcore, like the people that you love and appreciate, like at
That's
the end
what
of the
makes it
day,
stay.
yeah,
I know I
like
always say that because I feel like when I wanted to leave my hometown and move to Toronto, I was like, I'm gonna move to Toronto. I don't like anyone here. No, 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 whatever
mhm.
it was. And then I feel like
I felt that same like loneliness, I guess, in Toronto because I still didn't have those people around me. And it's really not, and I always thought it was like, oh, I don't like Toronto. I don't
Yeah.
like London. I don't like Ottawa. But it's like, no, it's just you don't have those people around you. And I think that's so important.
It's true. And then it just kind of shows you like what is like important in life. Cause it's like on like my deathbed, like that's the thing. Like I'd rather just be surrounded by like true, genuine people that like I love and that love me. And like it also made me appreciate like my family a lot more too. Cause it's like, I mean, like I said, we've always been really close, but you know, like growing up like a teenager, you're not like, oh my God, I like want to hang out with my parents all the time. I want to like hang out with like my brothers and like you develop like I think a new sense of like appreciation for the people that you love in your life when you're away from them. So
And as you move into adulthood, that's when you're like, oh, those were my people all along.
exactly.
Right? We all kind of go through that as teenagers.
Yeah, that's part of like growing up, I feel like, right?
Yeah.
So when you came home then after Italy, so you spent 6 months there and then you were like, were you just like, it's time to come home, or did you come home for a reason?
So I actually like I had said, I applied to med school. The deadline was like October. So I applied to med school in October, but I only applied to one school. Because basically there's like an admission test to get into med school. And I wrote it twice and I did horrible on it twice, which took me out of the running for like all the med schools in Canada except University of Ottawa, which like doesn't take this test. It's like the MCAT. So I'd applied to it, but like the admission rate, like the year before was like 3.4%. Like I said, or like, I don't know, it was very low. And in my head, I was like, I only applied to one school. I like, no, I'm not going to get in. Like, well, I didn't think that, but I was like, my chances are very, very slim.
Right.
So I actually like, I had interviewed for like a master's, like I kind of had a master's lined up for when I came home, when I was in Italy. And then I remember it was like, it might have been like January, February, I don't know. But I was like going to the gym and then I like opened my phone and I had an email that was like, congrats, like you have an interview. I literally like almost passed, I like started shaking. I like went to the bathroom. I like FaceTimed my parents. I was like, I just got an interview for med school. Like I'm like nauseous. What do I do? Like it was so unexpected.
For sure. That's always when it happens.
I know. And I was like, this is like insane because it was just kind of like I said, it was not expected. And then I was like, for a little bit, I just was like, okay, like I have to lock in like all my eggs in one basket. This is kind of like not my only chance, but I was like, this is like a huge opportunity.
For sure.
So I like prepped for my interview and it was like really different because like I'd never done interview prep for like med school and I didn't have anybody in my family that was like in medicine. And
yes, you didn't have like a mentor that could be like, this is like XYZ what they might ask you. You
exactly.
just had to like figure it out.
Yeah. Well, actually, so like this is another reason why like I'm super grateful for social media and another part of like why I share like my medicine on social media because all my mentors were social media people. Like they're all people I met through social media. And I'm very much like, I'm that girl that like will slide into everyone's DMs. Like I slid into your guys' DMs when we did our, because I just love it. I'm like social media. Yeah, like social media is meant to be social. It's meant to like facilitate socializing and like connecting with others. So like
for sure,
all my mentors were like, they're phenomenal. They're really good friends like of mine now, but they were all from Instagram. So they helped me a ton with like the interview process and everything. And then, yeah, I interviewed for med school and then the wait was like, I interviewed in February, March, April, May. The wait was 3 months to know. So I was just like, okay, I interviewed and it's out of my brain. I won't think about it.
Give it to the universe.
Yeah. But then I got it in. So I was just like, I had to come home anyways. I think like the limit without a visa or something like that was 6 months. So I was like, okay, I'll extend it as much as I can.
Good timing though, I guess.
Yeah. Like the timing was really like serendipitous, I like to say, because it's just like, I got to live there. I got to like, get this like I was still like partying a 10 when I was there, but like get this kind of out of my system. Exactly.
Yeah. But yeah, like that experience did help you grow a lot and like
oh my gosh, so much. Yeah. And it's like really like I think in undergrad it's like in like the like it's like pre-med culture, like it's very much like, oh my God, like it's med school or die. Like med school's so serious and it's like this big thing where like I think there's so much hyper focus on like getting in and I was kind of like stuck in that whirlwind of mentality for a while. And I was just like not really feeling like happy and fulfilled. And it was like, oh my God, like med school is everything. But I think traveling, I was like, we're literally like humans on a floating rock. Like nothing is that deep. I picked up and left my hometown. I moved to Italy, like, and like people can just do that. Like obviously it's like financial constraints, but I was like, I was working like 3 jobs during undergrad. I was able to like get the money and go. And I was like, people can just like do these things, like medicine's like not that serious. And I think that it was a really good time for me to be interviewing for it. Cause like the year I didn't get an interview, I was very much like, oh my God, if I don't get in, it's the end of the world. Whereas like my mentality the second time I applied and when I got my interview and got accepted was like, I'm so grateful to be able to like interview for this. And I obviously hope I get in, but if I don't, like, it's okay. Like, medicine is a part of my life. It's not my whole life. There is so much more to life than your job and your career. So
It was coming from like less of a
Yeah.
place of lack too, right? Like
exactly.
because
Yeah.
it was like, oh, no, I don't want to say desperation, but
But
like
kind
more
of it.
so.
That is.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like when you're like, I feel like the best comparison is like, you know, when you really want a boyfriend and
Yeah.
you're like, if you really want a boyfriend, like, does it happen now? You
Yeah.
don't need the love of your life.
Yeah.
And then when you're just
Or
like,
you attract the really wrong one.
right? But then on the flip side, when you just let go and you just let the universe kind of step in and just
Mhm.
let things happen naturally,
Yeah.
that's when it happens.
It's so true.
So I love that you just validated that though.
No, it's literally, and like people ask me all the time, they're like, oh my God, like, what are your tips for getting into med school? What, and like my advice is very like, I'd say like different than like what most people say. Like other people would say like obviously you have to focus on your grades and focus on like whatever,
Yeah,
like
there's
all
all
the
this studying
requirements.
that's required. Yeah.
Exactly. But it was like, I am like such a believer that like I got in at the time that I did because I was like, I like didn't care. Like I obviously I cared, but like, you know what I mean? Like you said,
You
it's
let
not like
go.
desperation. Yeah, I let go.
Yeah.
Exactly. Me and my friend
Wow.
always talk about
You
that.
also you knew you had done everything you could, right? Like you put in
Yeah.
the volunteer hours, you got the grades, you this, that,
Mhm.
that, right? So at that point it was either it's gonna happen or it's not. But you
Yeah.
were in a good place being in Italy too.
Yeah. And that's the thing. It's like I also think it's like it taught me a lot about just like letting go of the things you can't control. Because I was just like, okay, the only thing I can control is like how well I prep for this interview, but it was like approaching it with a whole different mentality. Like I think the first time if I'd gotten an interview, my mentality was very much like you said, like desperation, like, oh my
Frantic,
God, like
yeah.
please take me, please, I will do whatever, please take me. Whereas like the second time I was like, listen, like if they don't want me, I know I bring a lot to the table. I'm confident in myself. Like I genuinely at my core believe I will make an amazing doctor. And like if they don't want to take me, like that's obviously I like that sucks for me, but like I also am bringing stuff to the table. So that's like just like a mindset shift.
That was we
Where
need to play that back. If you're listening to this right now, play that back.
Yes,
That was
agreed.
so good.
But what was the shift, like the shift then, the mindset shift? What shifted your mindset into going from that place of desperation
Mhm.
to that place of just, I'm going to let go? What was the thing that changed that for you?
That's a great question. I think it's just a combination of a lot of things. I think the travel honestly helped me a lot because like I always talk, like I tell this to my clients as well, like my coaching clients, like we talk about confidence and I think I'm like a very confident person, but I
For
think
sure.
confidence is intrinsic and you build it by doing the shit that scares you. So I was like, when I booked this one way, like I wasn't like chilling. Like I wasn't like, okay, I'm gonna go to bed. Like this is so chill. I was like, holy fuck. Like I just booked a one-way trip to Italy. Like I don't know the language. I don't know anybody there. I don't even know where I'm gonna be living. Like I don't know anything. But then it's like, I think the confidence is built in those little things where you're just like, okay, like I'm gonna do it and I have to like trust myself.
But I'll figure it out.
That'll figure it out. Exactly. So then I think just like it was like good timing as well because I was like traveling and then I was like, wow, like I at the time that I interviewed, I think again it was like February, but like I was still figuring things out, but like things were going pretty okay. Like I wasn't like dead, like things are good. I was like happy. But yeah, I think it was just like that I think was really huge of just being like, hey, I'm taking this huge like chance on myself. And at the end of the day, like if I move and things go wrong, it's nobody else's fault but mine. But if things go right, that's also my fault, you know, and I think that like I did a lot and like I really pushed myself out of my comfort zone. I would like go to places like try to speak Italian, even though it's so embarrassing because like I didn't know how to like even order a coffee. Like I would go up to random people and just be like introduce myself and make friends, like do all the things that are so scary. And then like they kind of work out. And I think that just like the life experience of growing in that sense, I was like, okay, like I'm confident in who I am as a person. And I was just kind of growing like my socials as well. And I was like, I think with social media, honestly helped a lot too. Cause like you build thick skin. Like you're just kind of like, you're exposing like public parts or private parts of your life to just like so many people, like so many eyes on you.
Yeah,
You're
you're
being
sharing
vulnerable.
Yeah.
Exactly. And then like,
In everyone's opinion.
that's the thing. You have a lot of
Yeah.
opinions, a lot of eyes on you. My socials were growing. And then I was in a place where I was like, okay, like it was kind of like pivotal where I was getting like more messages being like, oh, like you're doing this, like what are your tips for this? And like it takes weight like on your shoulders because you're like, oh, like I have a lot of people who are like looking at what I'm doing.
Yeah.
But then just being more comfortable and being like, okay, like I am happy with who I am. And I think that it's like funny. It's like none of like the medical textbook stuff, like nothing from undergrad, nothing from like my calculus class. Like kind of brought me that. But I think it was just like the traveling and like meeting people and like doing all those like life things that kind of like builds that confidence. And I think that's kind of what helped me make that mindset shift, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And that's what it sounds like what you said, like everyone going through those motions, trying to get into med school. And it could be any other, right? Like people
Career,
trying to get into law or people trying to get into anything. They're so in that bubble. And what you said earlier kind of, you know, it resonated where you're like, it's not that deep. It's not that
That's
deep. Get
literally
out
my
of
life
your
motto.
bubble. And you got out of your bubble, like figuratively, but also like physically got out of that bubble, took yourself out of it. It like started it to expand your character, expand your, you know, everything around you. And that's when you realize like, okay, like you said, I'm a speck. I'm a speck.
That's
like
the thing. I know.
Yeah.
I that's like my life motto. Like I always tell everyone like it's not that deep. And even like, you know, like I used to be like in the shoes of like I'll have friends being like on like posting an Instagram story, be like, oh my God, should I post this? Do I look okay? Do I look bad? Do I look good? And I'm like, it's not that deep. And like no, like I always tell myself, I'm like, no one cares. No one cares about you as much as you care about yourself.
Because everyone's even more self-involved with themselves anyway to freaking notice whether you're
Exactly. Yeah. And then it's like I tell myself like, because again, like when I was growing on social media, it's still again like that pressure of like, oh my God, a lot of people are looking at like, should like I need to like look good and like I need to do this and like I need to like be like this perfect human because like all like eyes are on me. But then I'm like, okay, when I'm on Instagram and I'm scrolling, like, am I stopping on stories and like zooming in and screenshotting and like trying to like steal these things? Or like when people post, like, am I like taking like a ton of time to like care about what they're doing? And I'm like, no, I'm not. And like, I always tell my friends, they're like, oh, but what if people are? I'm like, then let them. That's literally fan behavior. I guess logistical perspective in terms of like balancing it all. I time block a lot. So like I organize like every single Sunday, I take like an hour, I'd say, to plan out my whole entire week. And I have like, I break my life into pillars. So like I forget someone that is like brilliant told me this and I forget who it was, but like it's like changed my life. But basically like 7 habits of highly effective people. I break my life into pillars of like what's important to me. So I have like the list in my head because I look at it so often, but like I have medicine, so like medical school, like whatever, like my medical career. And then I have fitness, like my own personal fitness. And then I have like my run club, which like we're not doing right now, but in the summer, like that was another pillar. Yeah. And then I have social media, like my personal socials. And then
here comes the dog.
and then I have like finances, and then I have like whatever miscellaneous, I think it is. I'm just like reciting my list, but I basically have these pillars in my life of like things that matter to me. And then I'm very goal driven. So like every single year, like I have my life broken down into goals, and like those timelines are like I have goals, I label it like before I die. So like I have goals for like different, like all my different pillars. Like before I die, I have like goals for like my medical career, goals for fitness, goals for like my coaching business, like different goals that way. And that's just like, I don't know when I'm going to die. So I'm just like, eventually, like later on, but like,
Can you share one of those goals? I'm just curious.
I think like for a while for like medicine, for example, was to get into medical school. Yeah. So I'm like happy with that. I think it's like, I'd say my before I die goals are sort of a moving target. Like I never set super specific goals. It's more like a thing to help guide me. And I think having the pillars there, like it just really grounds me and remembers like what is important. Like I remember what's important to me.
And almost like why you're doing it.
Yeah. And I have
to
why.
define
That's
that.
another thing from the book. It says like you have to set whys for everything. So like for all my goals.
We just talked about
Really?
this.
Oh my God.
Ironic.
As a medical student, I'm going to have to do residency after, which is like my program that will train me to be whatever type of doctor I want to be. So I have goals of like for end of residency, and then I have goals for like end of med school, and then I have goals for like the end of whatever like the year that we're in right now. That's kind of always how I break them down. And then my yearly goals, I break them down into like monthly goals on a month per month basis. So like actually tomorrow, like I'm gonna go because December 1st tomorrow. So I'm gonna go and sit and like again sit with that list and look at my goals. I look at my yearly goals. I say like, am I on track for my yearly goals? Like, are they still applying to my monthly goals? And then I'm going to set my monthly goals. And then from my monthly goals, I set weekly goals. So every single like beginning of the month, I set my monthly goals and my weekly goals. But then week to week, I sit and set my weekly goals just for that week. And then based on my weekly goals is like how I live my day to day. So every single night I like do a quick scan of like, okay, like I have my visual, I'm very visual. So I have my pillars there and I'm like, okay, for socials, this is my posting that I have to do this week. These are my brand deals. This is this and blah, blah, blah. Like, so my day to day kind of week to week is very much just going through the motions. But then if I ever am like really burnt out or I'm just like stressed, like I always have the why there. And I know it's like my day to day and my small habits and the little things that I'm doing are building up to like my bigger goals, which are my monthly goals. And my monthly goals are what get me to accomplishing everything I want in a year. And then my yearly goals get my like med school goals. My med school goals get my like life goals. And like I always had that purpose.
What really motivates you and drives you to be so ambitious and so driven?
I think I get a huge sense of like enjoyment and fulfillment from working, which like I always joke, and like one day that's gonna develop me into like a crazy like workaholic, but that's why I really like work a lot to like stay balanced. But I guess like on a deeper level, I think a lot of credit goes to my parents, honestly, because like I said, my parents like are just so inspirational to me and like they left kind of like everything they knew when I moved here. Like I was 5, I have 2 little brothers. So my middle brother was like 2 years old. My youngest brother was like he learned to walk on the plane. Like he was like a little baby. But like they moved like from Chile and moved here and pretty much the only reason was kind of for us. Like we were like in Chile, the schooling system's a little different. So me and my brothers, like we were going to like a private school and my parents were just like, that's like a lot of money to like put towards the kids going to private school. And my mom, like kind of a long story, but she basically was born in Chile and then she grew up in Toronto and then moved back to Chile when she was like 19 or 20. And then she met my dad and whatever. So like my mom grew up here, but so like she kind of knew the value of like education and everything, like the schooling system here. But they left everything, like all of my family, all of my extended family is all in Chile. And like my parents like moved here, they raised like me and my brothers. And like, even though they were super busy, like they both went back to school here when they moved here. So like my mom went to uni and then right when she graduated, my dad went to uni as well.
So that's like embedded
Yeah.
in you to like,
And like my
that
mom
makes
speaks
sense.
like perfect English, but my dad, like he moved here when he was in his 30s and like he learned English when he moved here. So he went to uni like with like in his like or like he speaks like a lot of languages, but like let's say in like his third language that he just learned in his 30s. And they really valued education. Like they always raised me and my brothers, like they were never like, oh, you need to bring home 80s and 90s. Like I never felt that pressure. They never wanted us to go into any type of domain. But they just always said like education is the one thing no one can take away from you. Like at your grave, you can have all the money in the world. You can go bankrupt. People can take your money. People can take your house. People can take all these things. Your brain, if you're educated, that is like, that can't be taken from you. And yeah, like I always tell people, I'm just like, I feel like my life is so chill compared to like what my parents like did. Like my mom was like raising us when my dad was in university, but they were also working because they had to put food on the table for me and my brothers. And we were all playing competitive sports. And my mom was always making sure to like still make time to like come to the field trips and like come and like show up for us and cook dinner for us and do all these things. And then when my mom was going to university, my dad was doing that. And like, they were like raising 3 young kids, going to university, working, doing a lot. Exactly. So
that's like, that's the framework. There was no other option. Like, right? Like that's what you grew up with. That's your normal. And that's like,
and like they never like, I think again, like they never expected that of us. Like they never were like, oh, you need to go into this. Like you need to like be super busy or like do all like 5 million, like all of these things. But I think it's just like, when I think of my life, I think I have everything handed to me on a silver platter. Like I'm like, I am young. I'm able, like, I'm so grateful to be like studying in a career that I love and that is like fulfilling to me and that I really enjoy. If my parents could do it with 3 kids and like basically like no other extended family, they didn't have like, I didn't have grandparents. I grew up like Christmas, it was like us 5. Like my parents like ran the show and did it so well. So I'm just like, I always just feel like, I don't know. Like I'm never like a victim. I'm never like, oh my God, like I don't have the time. I can't do this. I'm just like, if I ever kind of complain, I'm just like, I can do it. Like they did it with less time and less resources than me. And like, I always think to myself, like there's someone in the world that's doing way more than me with like less time or like less money or less support, like less of everything that I have. And they are like doing a lot more than me. And like, maybe they're like more successful than me.
What would your advice be to someone who doesn't really have that, but feels like they want that. Like who's kind of idolizing your life? Like what would be your advice?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like a lot of people ask me that often too, and I think it like kind of stems from like the question rephrased is kind of like how do you find your passion? Because like I said, I consider myself a very like multi-passionate person, and I'm really grateful for that because like I wasn't always that way, and like I know being in the shoes of like my past self, it's really confusing and stressful to just be like, what's my purpose? Like what is my role on this earth? Like who am I? What am I meant to do? Like what's my passion? What's my role?
I struggle with that.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
I just tell people like just try to do as many things as you can. Like that's kind of like I don't think nobody's born like out of the womb being like, "Oh my God, I'm passionate. Like I love this." Like it's just kind of like even like athletes, for example, like they grow up, like they probably play their sport from when they're young and then naturally like if they like it, they'll continue it. If you like something, you'll probably work harder at it. And if you kind of maybe have some gifts in whatever domain that is, like you'll naturally excel and do better. And that kind of, I think, like I think there's this like outdated type of mentality that passion is like you're in the shower and then it hits you and you're like, oh my God, this is it. Like, this is my passion. I think it's like something that you build. And then like, I think that like passion is just kind of what drives like, I guess, a successful life. Like everyone has different like versions of what success is to them. But I think it's just like doing as many things as you can. Like when I was like, oh, maybe I like medicine, like, but I didn't know I wasn't like passionate about medicine at the time. It was really like, I'm very like systematic and like pragmatic, logical. So I'm just like, hey, if I want to find out if I like medicine or not, what do I have to do? Like, it's pretty simple. I just have to try to kind of like observe a day in the life or like try to get more into like what it is. Or like when I was like with like social media, for example, it was never a thing where I was like, oh my God, I'm so passionate about this. It's just kind of, I was like, I want to share something that I like. And it always falls back to like, it's not that deep. I like to work out. I want to share it with other people, meet other people who like it. And then it just kind of grows from there. And then like, if you're, again, coming from a place of like, just like curiosity, I think, and enjoyment, like you kind of naturally develop passions that way. And then in an ideal world, like you're able to mesh your passions with something that can give you money. And then I think in an overly simplified way, like that's kind of it. But I think social media is like really cool in today's age because like I think a lot of people are able to like kind of grow a career out of it or kind of like explore those passions and meet like-minded people like with that. But
do you not find it draining? Because I find like that's the only thing with social media. Like, do you find like because you're having to put so much of yourself out there and like follow up with your content every week? Because if you're not consistent, you'll kind of fall off. And then obviously you have brand deals, right, and stuff like that. I assume. So how do you not get like? Does it not drain you?
I don't think so because like. So first of all, I don't consume a lot. Like that's one thing I was actually just talking to my friends about this yesterday because I was with them last night. They kind of asked the same question and I was just like, I rarely consume. Like I don't really ever like sit and like doom scroll. And like there was a time when I wasn't on social media as a content creator, but I was on it just as a consumer. And like I would just like I would follow the influencers, I'd follow my friends, I'd follow like randoms from high school that like no offense, I don't care what they're doing. And making this new account, like where I curate it to like I follow only people that like, that's okay. I only follow like people that like I feel like make me like inspire me. And like my biggest thing is like I should never go on a phone that I pay for and feel worse after being on it than before I went on it. And that's like my mentality with Instagram. If I ever am scrolling, like it all comes down, I think, to a lot of like mindfulness as well. As a fitness coach as well, like I tell my clients, I'm like, what we put in our bodies, like nutrition wise and like the movement and everything, like we have to be super cognizant of what we put in our bodies. But what you consume is like the biggest player. Like if you're consuming content, make sure it's like building you up and inspiring you. If you're following, like I tell my clients, I'm like, if you're following toxic diet culture that is telling you to like eat 2 almonds for breakfast, and like if you don't, you're not going to get to where you want to be. Well, obviously you're going to feel shitty the rest of the day. And like it's at the end of the day, again, we pay for our own phone plans. Like nobody's going to sit there and tell you like mute this person, do this. Like you have to take that responsibility. So I think I've curated an account from like a consumer perspective that like is very good for my mental health. And then from a content creator perspective, like I just have fun with it. Like I try again, I'm like, I always tell myself, I'm like, it's not that deep. Like sometimes I get in my head and I'm like, oh my God, brand deals. I need to do this. I need to do this. But I'm like, I calm myself down. I'm like, okay, worst case, the brand deal is supposed to be posted Friday and it posts Saturday. If you have fun with it and you don't put too much pressure on it and like you're in it, like if you're in it to connect with others, which like I'm always like so grateful. Like I wouldn't know you girls without social media. I like wouldn't know so many people. So like I think if you use it to socialize and build those connections that like
In the right
exactly,
way.
it's like it's
Yeah.
not really draining at all. I was at a point where like, oh, like seeing other people maybe like doing things like, and it was a comparison game for myself, but it was also growth in the sense that like eventually I had kind of like curated this feed that was supposed to be like really good for me and good for my mental health. And then I had the time to sit and be like, so why is this triggering to me? Like, why does this person like doing this? Or why does that make me feel like insecure? And then it's like getting really vulnerable with yourself. I'm a big like journal girl. So like just really like sitting down with myself and being like, why does this make me like feel insecure? Like, what are my insecurities? What makes me feel like this way? And just realizing that like comparison is the thief of joy. Like you can literally make anything in the world shitty. Like you can be on like on the best trip in the world. And then you like look at your phone and you're like, oh, well, Kim Kardashian is like doing this. Or like you get something really nice, like someone
that is
right.
fucking true. I've caught myself doing that for sure.
Yeah. And that's why I feel like when I notice that like my mental health, like if I've had like a really long week and I haven't had time to like be mindful of like what I consume and the content and everything, like if I find I'm like scrolling and I'm just feeling like worse than when I went on Instagram, I'm like now kind of shifted to like it's never anybody else's fault. Like I think it's a lot of like adulting is just taking responsibility and being like, listen, I'm like, okay, it sucks. And like I feel like maybe I'm not where this person is, but like at the end of the day, like whose fault is that? But like from the mindset perspective, I'm like, this is like a made up like vision that I'm creating. It's not necessarily a reality. And like I think it's always just coming back to like you have so much control over your thoughts and your perspective and creating like a new perspective.
Yeah, it's just like checking yourself and making sure you're in line then with your true purpose and your path.
All right, Cata, so you're extremely busy. We just went over everything you do in your day to day. So how do you find time to date? What's your dating life like? Spill the tea.
I know tea. Honestly, I feel like when like I said, I like try to like balance everything. That's probably like the one thing that like maybe takes more of a hit. Cause like, but I guess it's like kind of sort of on purpose, but the last like serious relationship I guess I was in was like my 4-year relationship that I had mentioned like during undergrad. That was in like 2021. It ended like end of 2021.
Wow, so you've been single for a minute.
While. I know. I know. Cause I was literally thinking. I was thinking about that the other day. I was like, oh my God, it's like really like it's getting to be a long time. But I've had like the typical like whatever situationships like every like now and then. I don't even know, last situationship maybe like last year. But it's like pretty non-existent right now. I'd say like I'm like on the dating apps and like I'm like I have like the Hinge and like whatever the other ones, but like I don't know. I feel like I'm not like super looking for a boyfriend, but it's like I feel like I'm at that age where I'm like I want to find a partner and like someone that like I want to spend time with, and like I love my friends to death and it's like I love to spend time with them, but I think it's like I'm at that age where I'm like, hey, I want to find someone that I can like kind of start building a life
And like
together
settle down with a little more.
Exactly. Yeah. But like, yeah, I don't know. It's tough. I feel like I'm really picky. Like I feel like I'll like go on dates and I'm very like, my friend said something once. She was like, oh, you have to like date them till you hate them. And then I'm like, I always think of that.
What does that even mean?
So apparently, what the fuck? So apparently what it means is like, if you go on a date with a guy, you might like not like them right away, but like you have to keep going on dates with them to get to know them until like you hate them or you
into love.
I wouldn't care for that. I have to say, like, I feel like with my boyfriend, kind of similar. Like, I wasn't like obsessed right away. Like, I wasn't like, oh my God, this date was magical. Like, it wasn't like that. Like, I was like I think I called you after. I was like, yeah, like it went like wow. Like he's obviously hot, whatever. But like, I wasn't like, holy shit. Yeah. So like, I kind of tested that.
You think?
You know, now because then I grew. Like, we just like the more time we spent together, it was more of a gradual process. I feel like sometimes when it's like hot and heavy, bring up the bats, red flags. Yeah, red flags.
It's bright. I know.
Like it never ends well.
But you know what? They say that some of the most successful relationships, it was a slow burn for the woman. Like,
yeah,
that's what I heard.
Yeah, I know. I've heard that too, actually. Like, I listened to a podcast that was like, talking about that, just being like, oh, slow burn is like really good and stuff. But like, I actually think, like, I was talking to my friend the other day about this. I think that's where my issue lies because, like, whatever, I'll like go on a date with a guy, and then after the first date, if I'm not like super obsessed, then I'm just like, because I have all this other shit going on, I'm just like, oh, like I'm already a horrible texter to people I actually love and care about. And then I'm just like, I find it really tough to like keep up like the texting. And if I'm not super obsessed, then I'm just like, oh,
Well,
like,
the texting is brutal, especially when you don't know each other yet, because you're like, wow, like I can't do this small talk shit.
I know. Yeah. And I feel like, because like I had mentioned before, I'm very like 0% or like super like 150% in. It's hard for me to like maintain something if it's like, again, with like, I think I struggle with slow burn, and I know that's not good. And it's like the last like situationship I was in, it was very much like we clicked right away, like super good chemistry. Like I was like super into him right away. I was like, oh my God, he's so fun, and like he's outgoing and he's like successful and blah, blah, blah. But then it's like that kind of ended abruptly. So then it's just like, I don't know. It's like, I know that dating, like you need to put the work in, and you need to like, you need to go on those dates. And maybe you're not like, oh my God, swooning head over heels, I can't wait for the second date. But like, I know you kind of need to do it. But like, I'm very much like, I think the past like couple of guys I've seen, like where it's like a first date type of thing, like I go on one date and then I just like never text them again. And I'm just like, but it's because I'm like picky, and I'm just like, oh, like it's hard. Yeah.
Well, it's because you're so passionate about everything else in your life that you feel like it should almost like feel like that too.
But I think like be patient, because it won't always be the person that you think you're gonna, because you're like, to your point about the guy before, you're like, he had a great personality, he was successful, he was outgoing, like all the things that you probably think you want
On paper.
Exactly. But you might end up with the guy that you kind of were like, oh, that's a different personality that I actually didn't really think I would even like or end up with, because you have to have someone who balances you out. You know what I mean? So keep looking, girl.
There's this TikTok that I've seen like a million times. It's this podcaster. I forget her name, but she was talking about a quote that one of her closest friends told her, who's actually Monica Tan, who's the founder of KLE, you know, like the perfumes, like Huda Beauty sister.
I love
So
that
when
perfume.
she was getting married and whatnot, like this girl was like, you know, what changed? You know, we've both been through like love bombing or toxic situations in the past. Like, what's your advice? And she was like, she told her, she was like, look for the fireplace, not the fireworks. Because the fireworks that are like crazy passionate don't always end well. Whereas like that, your person should make you feel like you're just cozy sitting by a fire.
Oh my God, I fucking love that.
That's really good. That's really good. I know.
So carry that with you, you know, like there is no rush, to your point, and you're so fulfilled and like, you know, all these things in your life that you want someone that's going to complement that, not like take you away from that, but also not drain you of that, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like it's all like a thing of patience. Like I'm not in a place, like I don't think I'm coming from a place of lack where I'm like, oh my God, I need a boyfriend so badly. I'm like, it'd be nice, but I'm very like unwilling to settle. Like if like, and I always think, I'm like, oh my God, like my parents would be so like upset with me if I like, if they treated me so well and like loved me so well as like their daughter and everything. Like I'm just like, I think like really high standards. So I'm just like, I would never like take any type of like toxicity. Like the first sign of that, like you're done. And I think it's also hard, as like, I'm sure you girls kind of understand, like being maybe like a woman in business, or like if you're kind of like an entrepreneur, or like focus on your career. I think like in the past, like men were kind of more, not designed, that sounds so bad, but like they kind of like showed up more as like a provider and just kind of like providing. And maybe sometimes men could kind of like get away with like treating like their partner like a little shittier, because they're like, oh well, like I'm providing for you and everything. But it's like, I think if you're fulfilled, whatever that may be, if you're fulfilled like just confident and happy with yourself, if you're fulfilled like maybe financially, if you're fulfilled in other ways, like you really like,
You're not going to take that shit.
you're not. And then that kind of makes it harder, because it's like, I have some friends and like I've been there in the past where it's just like you put up with certain things because like you're just like, I just want to be loved, I just want to be with someone. But then like when you take that love that you were trying to get from somebody else and you turn it towards yourself, and you're like, I really love myself, like I would never treat myself the way that this person is treating me, so why would I let them like treat me that way? Like I think the way that you let people treat you is like kind of like the standards you have for yourself like says a lot of like the way you see yourself.
Yeah.
But then also again, it's like there's really good guys, but then there's like a lot of shitty guys. So it's like having kind of like higher standards, being picky, like it all kind of makes it harder. But it's like a long kind of like waiting patience game. But
Yeah. And to your point, being a woman in business or like thriving in your career, all of that, like you need to be on your A game in those areas and kind of like in your quote unquote masculine energy. So then you want someone then, like as a partner who's going to balance that out and let you fall back into that feminine energy to like, you know, feel safe and in a safe space with them and be a team player with you to have that support and like have your back no matter what you're facing. But yeah, I think you're right. I think traditionally men got away with like just being the provider when it's like, that's not what we need from you all the time. It's especially if I'm like fulfilling myself in like career or making my own money. It's I need you to be there for me emotionally and spiritually and, you know, all the other things.
Yeah. Yeah. And I feel like also it's like medicine specifically, I think makes it hard to like date and settle down because like I said, when I like applied to residency, like it's like a really crazy system, but basically wherever you get into residency, like you have to go. You can't say no unless you want to be unemployed for a year, which like after graduating med school, like nobody wants that. So like I think in my mind, like it's a big ask to like to meet someone and be like, by the way, in a year and a half, like I could be packing up and moving like to like the other like side of the country. Like you really don't really know where you're going. So then I think that like I almost go into dates with like not a cynical mindset, but like
low expectations in a sense.
Because you're like it's temporary because I might be gone in a year.
Exactly. And then I'm just like, I think the more I've progressed through med school, like the closer I get to the end, the more I'm like, okay, like maybe in first year med, I'd be like, oh, if this like goes really well and I like go on this date and like we really hit it off, like we could maybe do long distance, like we could build up that like,
or they can come with you depending on their lifestyle, right?
Yeah, but then it's like
you never know, sir.
Yeah, I guess that's
timing is everything, babe.
And a lot of people look remotely now. Like, don't let that be one of your barriers. Yeah, you know? Like it's really about whether that person can complement your life or not.
Yeah. But I mean, like, I don't know. I feel like it's also hard, like, in this day and age. Like, I feel like back in the day, and like my parents, they met through like working together and like people met like organically just like in person. And now it's like so difficult because I'm like, sure, I always, not that it's an excuse, but I'm like, oh, I'm like really busy. So like, I don't really make time for dating. But I'm like, even if I wasn't that busy, like, where do I go to like meet guys? It's like, it's a no, like you're not supposed to hit on girls at the gym. So it's like, even if there's like a hot guy at the gym, I'm not gonna like expect him to like just yeah. And then it's like, I don't really like, I don't know if I want to be like going to like the bars and like meeting like guys at the bars and like,
well, I met my boyfriend at the bar.
Oh, really?
Well, it's fine. But that's the thing. Like, you never know. Like, I think you have to be like in me saying that, like I went into that situation not being like, I'm at the bar to find a guy.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It was very much like I was out with the girls actually just wanting to have a girls' night.
Yeah.
I was actually like seeing someone at the time. Yeah. And like we ended up meeting, right? So you just never know where you're going to meet someone. But as women, we need to put ourselves out there more and like go after, like it's like at the gym, maybe you need to go up to the guy.
Yeah.
You know, it's like you think something's talked in, like go.
It depends who you are as a person. Like some women are comfortable doing that. Some women no. And I think like
you strike me as someone that would do that.
I've done that. Like, just like, you know, like I don't know. I'm like, there's not, again, it's like it all comes back to like, oh, it's not that deep. Like I remember, and Italy taught me a lot of this because it's like another part of going to Italy that was really cool is like I could essentially reinvent myself. Like nobody there knew who I was.
I love that.
Yeah, so I could go anywhere and even, like Ottawa's small. Like even like I think sort of what plays in my mind is like I'm comfortable as a person to like go up to a guy and be like, hey, like I think you're cute. Like, do you have a girlfriend? Like whatever. But then it's like, oh, maybe that's like the close friend of like this person, or like maybe he's like seeing a girl that like exactly.
Yeah, and you're like, I need like a org chart. Yeah, and I think
exactly. And even with like social media and stuff, it's like because Ottawa's small and I like put all my life on social media, then I'm like, oh my god, like they probably might know me in some way, and like. But like in Italy, it's like I remember I like went to like this bar and I thought this guy was cute, and I literally went up to him and I was like, do you have a girlfriend? He was like, no. And I was like, I think you're really cute. And then like we were like kind of seeing each other for like a little bit, and it's just like at the end of, I feel like it's like I tell my friends, I'm like, it's rejection therapy and it's really good for you, because like everyone like as humans we're like, innately really scared to get rejected because we think that says something about us. Like we're just like, oh, if this person doesn't want me, like is it because I'm not pretty? Is it because I'm not cool? Is it this?
I'm
but
not
then like
enough. Yeah.
Exactly. But then like it's really good because the more like you get like rejected, it's the more you're just like, this is nothing about me. It's just like maybe they're not interested, but like even if somebody else isn't interested in me, like that's fine, because like I love myself, I'm comfortable with myself, like, and like the more you do it,
it's like they say, right? It's like it has nothing to do with your value or theirs. It's just it's not your like door, right? Or like not your person. Like
thank you, next.
Yeah. No, literally, thank you, next.
Yeah, I think there's something to be said about like
a man taking charge and like showing.
No, I agree too.
But I mean, hey, yeah, if you want to be the one to like,
yeah,
give it
like
a
I've
shot.
done it before. Like I also am like, oh, it'd be like, I think I'd want to be with someone that like reached out to me first, but it's like I'm also impatient. So like I've done it before. Like I've like DM'd a guy and just kind of like I wasn't just like, oh, you're cute. Like my pickup line was probably horrible, but it's just like I just don't care because I just don't care or give a fuck. I don't know. That's the thing, and I'm like, I always ask myself for like everything in life. I'm like, what's the worst that can happen? The worst that can happen is like he'll ghost me, or he'll be like, I have a girlfriend, or like something, and I'm like, that's not that bad of a consequence.
Or
life goes on.
Or it goes really well.
Yeah.
Or it goes really well, and then you have a really cute story to tell, you know?
I know. Yeah. But all of that to say, I'm like kind of dating around, but like definitely have not met my person, but I'm like not really in a rush. So, yeah.
Well, she's on the market.
Yeah, but she's also killing it. She's a whole.
How do we tell? The standard's pretty high. So you have to climb pretty freaking high.
Don't even shoot your shot unless we're like, you know, up to par with serious. I love that.
Okay, so we want to ask you one final question that we ask all of our guests before we close things off. So what is your one non-negotiable tip or practice that really makes you that girl or embody that girl?
That's a really good question. I feel like maybe tying back like everything we've kind of chatted about, it's just really like being unapologetically yourself, like just really like stepping into who you are. And obviously it's not like an overnight process. I think everyone has their own definitions of that girl. Like I think that girl, when it first kind of started on TikTok, it was very much about like what you had and the way that you looked and like physical appearance and kind of like what your life looked like on the outside. But I think that like you girls do a great job of like representing this with your branding. It's really like who you are on the inside and like letting that shine through. And I think that like just being unapologetically yourself, like have the power to be disliked. Like maybe not everybody will like you for who you are and the way that like you show up to the world. Obviously don't be like a shitty, mean, rude person, but like just be like a kind and good person. And like maybe you have like some weird hobbies or you have things that like you might think other people might think are like not that cool, but just like really lean into what makes you who you are. And then eventually like the right people will come and find you from that. It's kind of like, I think sometimes it can be like a lonely journey. But eventually you'll end up with the right people. And if you're just like, if you're always authentic and unapologetically yourself, I feel like that's really what embodies like being that girl, at least to me.
And like the rest will follow.
Yeah. I love that. And I love that you said that as well, because you're right. Even when we were like rebranding and talking about that girl, we were like, but that girl can look like so many different things. And it's not about like that typical like outwards, you know, image or perspective.
That like
it's really about it's really about being that girl within wherever you choose to be in your life and whomever you choose to be, but being that girl within and like loving yourself fully.
Yeah.
So yeah, I love that. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you so much for joining us today. We learned so much from you, and we just cannot wait to have you back already.
So where can our listeners find you, Cata?
So you can find me on Instagram. It's Cata Fernandez, I think with 4 Z's and an underscore.
We'll drop it in the description so people know.
I think it's the same on TikTok. But I love to be like when I'm not at the hospital, like I'm like out and about, you'll probably like run into me like at a spin studio, running. Like I love when people say hi to me and they're like, it's so funny. People will be like, oh my God, this is like so weird. I think I follow you on TikTok or Instagram. I'm like, that's so weird. Like it's so nice to meet you. Like,
I love that.
So anyways, maybe on the streets, maybe at a spin studio, but those are my socials.
Okay. So go up to her, say hello. But thank you so much for being here with us today. We know you're super busy, so we appreciate your time.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for joining us. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, we'd really appreciate if you could like, rate, and subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram and TikTok at It's That Girl Club to stay in the loop with your girls and join us in becoming that girl. See you next Wednesday.